If you aren't the favourite child, how much do you whine about it? Is a groundhog a metaphor for Lewis Hamilton's recent career performance? Welcome to Tinfoil Helmets, your occasional spicy hot take roundup of the latest F1 rumours, all with almost believable conspiracy theories to back them up. Everything here has been carefully researched for hours to make sure it is totally founded in logic, reason and truth. Or not! Who knows? Shall we see if we got anything right?
Oh, let's do it, because I feel like my predictions were for my Spanish predictions were better for this race than my my Canada predictions.
It seems so. I predicted that Felipe Drugovich gets his one race and then beats Fernando. No, because apparently Lawrence Stroll can have operations on his hand and have them immediately fixed and get back into the car, and it's fine. He did have a private test at Magny-Cours in some car to test that his hand wasn't broken.
What was it okay though? Because with the exception of Lando Norris's crash, he was the last driver classified, and Alonso was touch and go at the points all race. So, what was he better? Is this better?
His hand is better. I don't know. I also predicted that it would rain, giving Max the opportunity to win. That didn't go very well. And then, in a shock of brilliance, but for the wrong reasons, I said Cantonelli comes third because he's crazy in the rain. It didn't rain, but he was third.
Yeah, no, Kimi was great. Let's see, what did I have? I had rain, please. Nope, didn't rain. We both wanted the rain. There's been some good rain coming down the East Coast recently, so it felt good, but not that good. I was hoping for multiple safety cars or safety car-like activities. Because Alex Albon did maybe the best possible job parking up an F1 car after an incident we have ever seen, we didn't get that.
So not only are we upset that Alex's car broke down, we're upset at Alex for the fact that he didn't park it in the middle of the track and he did something reasonable with it. No good deed goes unpunished.
He did it. As far as like maintaining a green flag racing environment, he did a great job. As far as the random number generator to spice up the race, come on, Alex. Let's be a little bit more thoughtful of where we're parking up our cars.
Yes, indeed. Next time, think about what might happen. Think about the extra bonus you might get from Red Bull.
However, this is once again another Mercedes power unit failure. Their wonderful Mercedes reliability is not looking as good as it once did.
They had one failure this race. It was Alex's, right? It wasn't. He didn't fail another one. Everybody else finished.
Yeah, but somebody, or Alex was at least managing an issue for a while. I think somebody else had an issue as well. But it's also one of those things of, but I think a majority of the power unit failures this year, power unit issues, have come from Mercedes.
Yes, they have. Although, given the number of Ferrari engines that have been swapped, that may change later in the season.
Well, ongoing season stats that we are not keeping track of. And I think I feel like I had an off by one error because I wanted the two McLarens to recreate 2016 in Barcelona, and they recreated 2011 in Canada. So I picked the wrong race.
You made the mistake of thinking that Lewis and Nico is like Oscar and Lando. And you have forgotten the key fact that Lando Norris is like Jenson Button. And so it manifested itself for the team and the drivers.
Just to be clear, you're talking about world champion Jenson Button?
Yes.
Yeah.
He was just lucky. He got given the best car in the season and managed to win with it. Oh dear, that wasn't my point.
Again, he's seeming more like a Rubens Barrichello if you're going to go for that metaphor.
Yeah. Hopefully that doesn't make Oscar like Jensen and only gets one. Shall we see if anything happened between races?
I mean,
was dramatic?
I would take Oscar getting one if Lando got none.
Ooh, strong feelings there. Strong feelings.
We'll talk about it. Maybe my opinion will change on Lando in time, but at least the 2025 version of Lando Norris is like, no, you actually do have to drive the car. It won't get handed to you.
Indeed. But we should save that for the exciting race recap. Did anything happen between races?
A couple things. We had 2 weeks. There was something else that happened in here, wasn't there?
Anyway. First of all, the FIA, in their flexibility for the drivers that didn't really require it, unless your name is Pato O'Ward, in which case you won't get it, or Colin Hurter, where you won't get it either. They decided to grant Arvid Lindblad a super license, despite being young and not qualifying for it. So he's going to get that to drive at some point. If you were Yuki, would you be concerned at this point? I think you should be.
Man, I think I'd be more concerned if I was Liam.
Oh, yes, Liam had a very bad race.
Well, he didn't finish.
Exactly, he had a very bad race after they swapped his engine. Anyway, we'll come back to that later. They also revealed the 2026 calendar, and they almost solved the planet hopping problem. Almost. But now there's a conflict with IndyCar, and everybody's upset about it, but only every few years, and I didn't quite understand it, because... Was there never a conflict with IndyCar before? And now there is every 8 years or something?
What, for Monaco?
No,
I was looking at something else. Oh, for Canada.
Yeah, I think it's
because they changed the So it was that Monaco and the Indy 500 were on the same day, and that was fine because Monaco was over well before Indy started. So we had what I've seen referred to online as Motorsport Christmas, because you had Monaco first thing in the morning, then immediately following that you had the Indy 500, and then immediately following the Indy 500 you had the Coca-Cola 600. So you could spend, if you were an American, you could spend the entire day watching motorsport.
The greatest motorsport weekend ever invented.
Well, until we double stack Le Mans and Formula One, but whatever. But because now they're swapping Canada and Monaco, then Canada is going to line up almost with the exact same start time. Like I think they both start. They'll start within about an hour of each other, if I remember correctly. So the Formula One race in Montreal will take place during the Indy 500. So you'll have to watch it on two screens rather than back to back to back.
Well, the problem is IndyCar just keeps going on for so long. If they just did it a lot quicker, we could get it over and done with.
I mean, they are technically going faster than Formula One cars.
That's true. I'll give it that caveat.
So they're going as fast as they can, Dominic.
They're going as fast as they can. Still not fast enough. Everybody keeps asking Max about his penalty points, and he just seemed really annoyed. Apparently, in the front of the pre-race interviews, somebody asked him for the fourth time. It's so these penalty points that you've got going on here, they look a bit, you're going to drive different. And he's like, I've told you, I don't want to talk about it anymore. Why do you keep asking? It doesn't make any difference.
Oh, did you see when they landed in Canada, Ted trying to get Max to throw somebody under the bus?
I did see that, and I thought that was particularly well handled by Max.
And particularly terribly handled by Ted.
Yeah, I think I know what Ted was trying to do, but he was doing a very bad job of basically...
He was doing a very bad job, and then it's well, I'm not trying to do that. No, Ted, you were totally just trying to do that, because essentially he singled out a newer member of the Red Bull team, because it was what Jonathan Wheatley's job previously, and now it's this person's job. And Max is why are you calling him out by name? Yeah, we've made mistakes. We've all talked about it. We're on a great space. Why are you calling out this one person by name? Oh, I'm not trying to single them out. Well, then why did you call them out by name? You specifically called them out. It was very, Max was not having it, and overall probably protecting Red Bull more than he should.
They would protect it more than they would protect him, maybe.
Maybe. Or at least more than I feel, yeah, if he was any other driver, but Red Bull's been good to Max. Max has been good to Red Bull. So there's a lot there. Yeah, but it was definitely one of those. He was not having it with Ted Kravitz.
He was definitely in a justifiable mood. And last but not least, for the race drama, I saw the thing that you added. And I've moved it to the next section where we were going to discuss the thing that you were going to discuss.
Great. I think that's fine because it's a good segue.
Yes. Okay. Is Apple spent the first 3 minutes of their annual developer conference pimping out the F1 movie. I kind of enjoyed it as an F1 fan, but it felt a little bit weird at the beginning of a developers conference to have a bunch of people driving the fake F1 car around Apple Park and then interspersing it through all these other things. It felt very strange.
Well, to be fair, if there's one thing I think Apple's doing really well right now, it's Apple TV Plus. And while that's not something the developers conference might be the most interested in, it is probably the most prolific thing Apple's currently doing, because all of the shows I have watched on Apple TV Plus are all good. They're all very fun. They're all good. I've enjoyed every single one I've watched.
I love Apple TV Plus.
I need to keep up with The Studio. The Studio's been very fun, especially if you're somewhat of a cinephile.
I did not like The Studio.
How far of The Studio did you watch?
We watched the first episode, and that was enough for us.
That's fair. I would recommend watching maybe one or two more.
Okay.
because every episode is in a slightly different style, and they're like critiquing a lot of some of the own style they're talking about. So, like it's not. They're also very episodic in the sense of like you don't need to watch like the previous one to know what's going on. Like the Kool-Aid movie, I think, is mentioned like maybe in another episode or two, but it's not like the driving plot of the season.
I see. Okay.
Yeah. So like there's one episode where there is a director who's trying to get a one shot like right at sunset, and Seth Rogen's character is very big on cinema, so he like wants to go watch the one shot, and like but the whole episode is a one shot to like try to capture like the whole thing of the one shot. So that's very fun. There's another episode where they're looking for a missing film reel on a set of a noir style detective feature, and the episode becomes a noir style detective episode. And one of the things he's doing is he's making voice notes on his phone because that's what his therapist told him to do. But it rings like, you know, the intro scenes to every detective noir thing of like, it was a dark, rainy night in these backwaters of LA. Like, so it's very well done from that point of view. So I would recommend giving it a couple more episodes, because once you kind of realize that's what they're doing, it gets a lot more interesting.
Maybe I should save that for my flight back, because watching the first episode and watching Seth Rogen making poor life choices and being stupid about the one shot thing that he was doing, I was just like, I can't cope. I can't cope with TV shows where people seem to intentionally make poor life choices.
Yeah. But yeah, it's just it's fun. There's another great episode where Ron Howard has made a fantastic movie, and everybody thinks the last 20, except for the last 20 minutes, and the last 20 minutes just need to get cut, and Ron Howard refuses to cut the last 20 minutes, and they're all having private conversations where it's like, wait, you told Ron was good. Yeah, no, I hate that. We shouldn't do that. Like, but nobody will stand up to Ron Howard because it's Ron Howard.
Beautiful. Shall we see if people still have jobs?
Sure. I mean, Ron Howard definitely does after directing the movie Rush. Will Rush be better than will the Formula One movie be better than Rush? I think that's a key question.
That is an excellent question that should we see the film, we will be able to provide a valuation of.
Yes, I think maybe tuning in during the summer break to this wonderful podcast, we might have an answer for you.
I agree. But I'm making no promises. We don't know what might happen in the future because the future's still the future.
That's true. We record these well in advance of the past.
Exactly. So the first person who appears to have been fired, but then actually wasn't fired, but then apparently everybody said he was fired, and then he said he isn't fired, is Fred Vasseur. Apparently the whole of Italy has said that Fred Vasseur was going to be fired, and then everybody came out and said no.
Yeah, but I think in all that, Fred had the most interesting quote, which is what I wanted to throw into between race drama, but I think it fits in just fine in this segment as well, is we've changed everything at Ferrari except for one thing.
Did he enumerate that?
I don't think he specifically called out what the one thing was, which wasn't that that fun, because he didn't say the one thing, but he did specifically talk about like, well, we've changed the strategy team, we've changed the team principal, we've changed the engineers, we've changed our drivers. Oh, here it is. Oh, no, this is a thread. We must ask ourselves the right questions if Ferrari hasn't won in years. We've changed the TP, we've changed the drivers, we've changed everything except one thing. I believe the one thing that he is referring to would be the executive team.
Oh, I thought he might be referring to Italy.
I don't think you can change Italy.
Well, you could take Ferrari out of Italy.
Oh, but can you take Italy out of Ferrari?
Fair point. They will.
No, the speculation I saw was that it was around the executive team.
So therefore it's John Elkann's fault?
Yeah.
Oh dear, that's not good. That means Lewis's golden angel that will hold him in the team will be gone. So
the prevailing theory of doom scrolling and reading too much is that after the Ross Brawn, John Tott, Michael Schumacher triangle of if you fire one of us, we will all quit sort of thing.
Yes.
That wrangled too much power away from the executives in the post-Enzo Ferrari world, and they don't want that to happen again, and that is what is for holding Ferrari back.
So the fact that Ferrari want to win and will do anything to win, except the thing that they need to do to win, is in fact what is holding Ferrari back.
I mean, there are so many sports dynasties and sport things we can point to of executives wanting more credit and destroying a franchise. See the 1998 the 99 Chicago Bulls.
Is that a basketball team?
That is a basketball team. Did you not watch The Last Dance?
No, I did not. I thought that was about ballet.
No, it was about basketball.
Oh, you're talking about The Last Dance, the TV documentary, not The Last Dance, the musical.
Correct.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, about the 97-98 Bulls season.
Got it. So yes, Fred apparently is getting fired, but not getting fired. So.
Right. But I think Fred does make an interesting point, because we've talked a lot about on this podcast of how Ferrari keep doing the same things over and over again. And sure, you might change the same people, or you might change people around, but if you keep hiring these same types of people in these same types of roles, you don't get any new thinking, you don't get any new innovation, and the executives get to maintain their power.
Where have I heard that before?
Everywhere.
Exactly.
Your employer's all hands?
Indeed, exactly. Every employer's all hands everywhere that has ever happened in the history of the universe. We would like to talk platitudes about why we have fired people, something, something, filler, something, something, something. We feel very bad for people, something, something, something. The beatings will continue until morale improves.
Yeah.
Next on this list, which we'll do a little bit of a preview because there's a lot more to talk about, Lando. Because if what he did doesn't get him on this list, I don't know what does.
I think Zach Brown would have to leave McLaren for Lando's job to be in danger.
Because it's the Lando Norris era.
Yeah.
And then last but not least, apparently Lance does still have a job, which seems a bit sus. But we talked about that at the beginning.
Yeah, I mean, we kind of speculated this was a way to get Lance out of the seat. Maybe it was. Maybe it wasn't. I could see him... Honestly, it feels weird that he rushed back to the seat, given that he rushed back to the seat last time and was left with lingering consequences. So no, let's do this 2 weeks later and do it all over again.
There has been no confirmation that he actually had an operation. We've not seen him with things on his hands or anything. There is the rumor that he punched a wall in, where was it?
Barcelona after qualifying. Indeed. And then suddenly his hand hurt and he withdrew for the race.
Suspicious. But then he did this private test to make sure that his hand was okay, and to make sure that because he'd had 2 weeks off racing, that's a long time. It would have been hard for him to get back into the rhythm of things, so he needed to practice. It seems very sus to me. I feel there was a lot of politics going on in the background.
Yeah, I don't know if this is quite a move to get Lance out or what, but or maybe the hand is just a cover story for like an internal team suspension because he did punch a wall, because we know that Lance was a little bit hot-heady a year or so ago, and probably got a talking to at some point in time of, you can't treat the peasants like this. You have to pretend to be a good billionaire's son.
I like it. I like your thinking.
And then he did it again, and maybe it was a one-race suspension of, hey, and we had a cover story, which, if we're going to conspiracy theory this podcast, I love that.
Love it. That's what we live for here. It's conspiracy theories about Formula 1. Shall we see what happened in qualification?
It was a
boring,
decent quali.
Yeah, but it was boring in a good way.
I would say not in a predictable way, though.
Very true. I agree with that. Albon ruined somebody's quali, right? Because his bodywork sprayed everywhere and broke something.
I think he definitely caused Lando to use a second set or another set of tires, fresh rubber.
Yeah. That's why Lando didn't qualify very well. It must have been.
Also, it's amazing Williams can't make a car without the side falling off.
I was just watching it drive down the last straight, and it just goes boop. It's very impressive.
The crazy thing about that is he did another lap. He didn't go in to the pit lane right away. He did another lap.
I know. I don't understand how. I can understand how maybe he didn't notice because you can't see anything and it happened very quickly.
You think he would hear it, though?
You'd think maybe he'd hear it, but even then, maybe not. But I'd still have expected the radio team to be right straight onto him and said the words, box, 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 box.
Yep.
Rather than letting go around and then spraying more bits everywhere. But here we are.
Not to foreshadow the race totally, but he didn't quite like listening to his race engineer this race.
Oh, yeah. I really want to know what was going on with that. But before we get to the race.
That would be an honorable mention for what team debrief do I want to be in.
Oh, excellent plan. Oscar and Max basically duked it out for the entirety of quali, doing back and forth and like pushing each other. And then George, who kept screwing up his laps, suddenly pulled it together and somehow put it on pole. And I was extremely disappointed. And I did not want to have to deal with George on the podium, standing there and saying nice things. But I will accept that when he did his little post pole position qualification thing on the radio, and he was like, "Woo, isn't this amazing?" And the team didn't respond, and they said nothing. And he had to say twice. He had to say, "Talk to me." And then he said louder and more angrily, "Talk to me." because he really wanted someone to say something. And then suddenly Toto comes on the radio about 10 seconds later. It's like, yeah, good race. Yeah, good job. Yeah, excellent.
And then we did get some on the Sky coverage. I believe Max congratulated George on pole, and the TV event director cut away from that very quickly.
Oh, well, why did he cut away from that? Because he showed them getting on rather than stirring up the shit between the two of them?
Yeah, that we can't have everybody being friends.
Yes, it was terrible. We can't have them being friends. That wouldn't work. That would mean that we'd have a very boring race. I don't know what happened to Charles, but Charles just couldn't go anywhere. I can't remember whether he was one that got screwed with his sets of tyres or something, but he just couldn't put the lap together.
Yeah, but Lewis did.
Lewis did, and it was his highest qualification of the season, or equaling his highest qualification for Ferrari in a real race.
That's fair. Lando did screw it up though. He was down in like 7th.
Yeah, he was in. Yeah, it was 7th in the end, wasn't it? I was about to say 5th, but yeah, 7th, and that's given the other car was on 3rd, and it was really close to being on the front. Not good. Not a good job from Lando.
And we did say, kind of going into this whole season, of the main thing that Lando had over Oscar was qualifying pace, because it did seem like Oscar had better race pace than Lando. It looks like Oscar's fixed his qualifying, or has gotten better at qualifying.
He's got it. Oscar is the real deal. He has it.
He seems good. He's very calm, cool, and collected throughout everything, even when your teammate runs into the back of you.
Shh. That's coming later. Apparently Alonso's back because he pulled it into 6th, which I thought was pretty good for Alonso.
Which also makes Lance Stroll look even worse, because he was, 17th in qualifying?
Yes, it was terrible. And then you've added a note here about George secretly recording everybody?
Yes. I don't know if it was a true thing from Oscar, because I don't follow everybody on all the social medias, and there's one that I just don't even go to anymore, so I didn't go verify it. But somebody at least shared a screenshot of it, and then somebody shared a recording of it. It seems that George was mic'd up during qualifying, and for because it was
went out of the car.
No, because he and Oscar are having a conversation after qualifying, and Oscar apparently made some sort of comment of, now I have to watch out for Netflix mics and George mics. Like Mercedes had him mic'd up for some sort of content on their side, because they had really, really good audio, which I guess they could have used one of those parabolic mics to get as well. But essentially it was capturing both sides of the conversation, and I don't think it was not like Oscar said anything bad, but it was one of those, this is a moment between two drivers talking about how things went, not necessarily a time to be polished in front of media, and Oscar wasn't happy about that bit.
No, I agree with that. You should not take someone who says something implicitly off the record and suddenly make it on the record. You have to ask people first.
So Mercedes and or George are secretly recording people without their knowledge.
Would not be surprised. Moving on to the race, there is some housekeeping to keep track of. Liam Lawson took a 50-place grid penalty because he changed his engine and then this started from the pit lane. Yuki took a 10-place grid penalty because he overtook someone in red flags in free practice, and then he changed his car and started from the pit lane. And then both Ferraris took new engines. I think they did that in qualifying, so they didn't have to take a grid penalty, but that meant that they all got new bits, and you have to question whether the Ferrari is going to last to the end of the season. And then we have the start.
I would just want to reiterate that if somebody takes 50 grid places, I want to see them halfway down that back straight.
Yes.
Come on. Make 100%. Them 50 grid places back.
100%. And as of this starting, nothing happened. Nobody crashed into me. I was very disappointed. Because if you're going to put George and Max next to each other, where they've supposedly got the beef that we cut away from to make sure that we know that they're not friends, they should crash into each other. Otherwise, it's just going to be very boring.
But we did get a good bit of Kimi Antonelli going around Oscar Piastri.
Kimi did a pretty good job.
He did. It was a fine start. Can't really say anything good or bad about it.
Them cars, they went forward, they went left, they went right, same old.
To be fair, I don't like when the front runners come together in turn 1 or turn 2. I prefer when the midfield just all accordions themselves together in the
I agree,
start.
Except when it's George.
Fair enough.
Then on lap 12, there was an incident between Lewis, a groundhog, and his floor, which then took away 20 points of downforce and basically ruined his race.
Yeah, poor groundhogs around. Circuit
Yeah,
Gilles Villeneuve.
I'd have thought that given how often it happens there every year, that the groundhogs would not have decided that it would be a good place to nap in the shadow of where the big loud things go past. But here we are.
Well, it is an island, so maybe they don't know to get on the bridge and get out.
Maybe they can't get out.
I will say once again on lap 11 we had Lando Norris proving he can only overtake cars when he has a car advantage.
But he makes the best of that car when it gives it to him.
Yeah, when his car is better than somebody else's car, he can be faster than the other driver.
Yes, exactly.
This is some real American sports commentary coming into play.
It's beautiful. That's why it's the Lando Norris era. Everybody's tires were wrong because they didn't do what everybody thought they were going to do. They went forward, they went back, they went left, they went right, and everybody was upset and then changed their tires really early. It appears that Alex Albon has spent his entire luck for the season because after such a great run for the first 8 races, because this is race 10, right? For the first 8 races, we had great performance and he had a terrible weekend last weekend. And then this weekend, within like 2 laps, they're like, FYI, your engine's broken. We're nursing an issue. It's not as bad as last time. And basically, he just kept going backwards and backwards and backwards and backwards.
Yeah. And then Alex was nursing an issue for a while.
Yep.
He did end up parking up, but man, he had some conversations with his engineers.
What was that about? Because nobody revealed it on the broadcast.
No, I wasn't even sure either. It seemed like strategy went by the wayside. I think there was some chat of like maybe they could all make some of them could try to make a one-stop work, and then you still like. I think it was a lot of he was nursing his tires trying to make a one-stop work, and then they called him in without telling him they were going to call him in. So he's like, I have all this tire life left that I haven't used. I mean, Charles was something similar of what is this tire after the first pit stop, because they went hard, so they pretty much guaranteed they were going to have to stop again. Well, they did guarantee they were going to have to stop again outside of like a red flag situation.
I'd forgotten about that. That was terrible on behalf of Ferrari. But these days, what else did you expect from Ferrari?
Yeah. It was definitely a race where I was thinking of taking a nap.
Yes, which I did, but only after I noticed that Alonso is in fact not back, because after the first 5 laps where he stuck to Lewis, and then after Lewis hit the groundhog, then Alonso fell back and kept falling back and kept falling back and kept falling back, which only leads to one conclusion, is that Alonso had a traumatic moment as he saw the remnants of the groundhog shoot out the back of Lewis's car.
However, Lance Stroll started 17th, finished 17th. Look at that. He didn't lose a single place the whole race.
Yes, because of the amount of cars that he didn't wait. No, he went backwards 3 times, didn't he? Yes, we should be clear for our listeners. He went back 3 spaces, and then 3 cars retired in front of him. So yeah, he's a bit shit.
Yeah, but if you look at the stats, the overall stat line, he lost no positions during that race. He finished where he started,
and that's all we ever remember in history.
Right.
Stats. But then, after we had a nap, and we waited, and we woke up from our nap, and everything was going on, and we were thinking about what was about to happen, Lando got really close to Oscar. Very close.
Oscar cut all the back markers in all the wrong places.
Yes, he did. He caught every single back marker in exactly the wrong place, and he was the one that he wasn't leading at the time, but I think he was waking all the back markers up, and therefore Lando got to go through them more quickly.
I think we still need the rule that if the car in front of you has DRS, you do not also get DRS if you are in DRS range.
Wait, why?
But granted, that's a moot point, because in 2026 DRS is going away.
We get other
weird active arrow stuff.
Yes.
But the whole thing is you end up in these DRS trains where everybody's just in 1 second of each other. So my thing would be every other car would have DRS. So you still get probably a pretty good slipstream, but if there's 3 cars and the car has the car 1 doesn't have DRS because it's in free air. Car 2 has DRS because they're within 1 second. Then car 3 doesn't get DRS. You can't double stack. You can't stack DRS. You have to let the person in front have a legitimate chance with the DRS.
Breathing some gaps into places where there aren't any.
Yes.
Unlike Lando, who couldn't put a gap.
So he was closing down Oscar while Oscar was closing down Kimi. He got really close, and then I think Oscar went a little wide at the hairpin, and then they were side by side. Oscar proving that he can do overtakes because he charged down the inside on Lando going into the chicane at the very end. Which good job Lando and Oscar not hitting there.
I would like to say that was actually some really good driving from both of them, not hitting each other, giving everybody a bit of a gap, making sure it made sense.
But I think it does also look at them as an overall picture of Oscar was driving the car to overtake, and Lando was trying just to have an advantage from the car, and they're equal cars. And in that case, that is why Oscar continually, for at least that sequence, came out ahead. And I don't know, like, you know, there's the Senna quote, if you no longer go for a gap, you're no longer a racing driver. But there was no gap on the inside there. Like, when they showed his onboard, like, Lando commits to, like, the inside where there isn't even a car's width. And, like, it's not Oscar's fault in any sense of the way because, like, he is driving the line.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, they're not alongside. So he did not have to leave him any sort of space. He was clearly ahead. There was no space to go on the left. And Lando says, yeah, I think I'm going to try there.
Just watching it over and over again in the replays as you see it happen, you're like, what was he thinking? There was no space. And credit to Lando, he does immediately own up that it was his mistake and he was terribly sorry about it. But it was hilarious, and it was a repeat of it was very close to a repeat of 2011. When was it? It was Lewis in Lando's position, I believe.
Yes. Where I thought Jensen was the one who lost the wheel.
No, because Jensen goes on to win the race, and the one that gets switched against the wall isn't. So that was the race where like Jensen Button changes tires like 8 times. It was ridiculous.
Yeah, that was the race that gave us the current generation of Pirelli tires that we currently have and everything.
Yeah.
Which apparently next race is Pirelli's 500th race as a tire supplier for Formula 1.
Half century.
Yeah,
not half century, half a millennia.
Yeah,
that's pretty good.
I think they'll win.
I think there's a good chance that they will win.
Yeah.
Either that or Pirelli might win. It's one of the two.
The big question is the Pirelli soft, medium, or hard going to win the race?
What are we labeling it this week? Because they like to juggle the labels so that this year's soft is... this year's medium is last year's soft.
C1, C2, C3, C4, C5, C6.
Exactly.
I think we've... Bring back the hypersoft.
Yes.
And the super hard, which they never used.
So we had a crash because Lando thought he saw a gap. He clearly didn't. He was hallucinating. He was distracted on his phone and just pummeled into the wall, and he was immediately out. Somehow did not take out Oscar Piastri, which kind of blew my mind.
Or a puncture,
and then
Oscar Piastri.
Sorry?
Or a puncture.
Yes, I thought he actually got a puncture because he then came into pit, but apparently that was just a cover off for the restart. That never happened. Because we got a safety car.
Because they, in almost a premonition sort of way, on lap 63 or something like that, they asked Lando if there's a safety car. Do you have a free stop behind you? Do you want to change tire? And he said, yeah, absolutely. So when Lando got out, Oscar now had a free pit stop behind him. So he changed tire.
They were well practiced. They'd thought through it. They knew what was going to happen. So they do the safety car thing. And then George, on the second, I think, maybe third safety car lap, drops more than 10.
It was the first safety car lap.
Was it the first car? It was
the first time around through the safety car, because after that it was kind of apparent they weren't going to restart. But George was claiming like he needed to make sure his brakes were still warm, and kind of looks to the right as Max Verstappen is on the right-hand side and brakes really hard and causes Max to overtake. And then almost immediately gets on the horn like, well, Max overtook. It's like, well, you jammed on your brakes really hard. He wasn't expecting that.
It was funny because Max is also immediately on the horn doing like, George accidentally braked.
Yeah, I think we'll get into it in a little bit, but they did end up filing a dispute over this. I think it was the wrong dispute to file.
Yes, because we noticed, I think everybody noticed, George dropped more than 10 car lengths back. And if we know there's one thing from safety cars, you must be within 10 car lengths of the car of the safety car.
While the lights are still on and all that. I think somebody calculated it as 17 and a half. To be fair, I think they've always been somewhat lax on this rule for it being such a hard and fast guideline. For especially when Alex Albon got done for speeding 1/10 of a kilometer per hour over the pit lane speed limit, which I agree, that's a hard, fast limit of you have a speed limit, you break the speed limit, but you also have maintained 10 car lengths to the safety car. Like, if you're not doing that, you should also get a penalty.
And they used to use that against Seb. When his Red Bull days, they used to be like, you were more than 10 car lengths back, you're in trouble now, get in trouble.
Yeah, I think you can say the rule is 10, the limit is 12, because, like, it's somewhat hard to judge. Like, you need to be within 10, but you get a penalty after 12. 17 is outrageous. But anyway, race finished under the safety car. George wins. George now has as many wins as Max has championships.
I can't believe that George only has 4 wins.
Right?
I can't. It just, that kind of blows my mind as that stat. You saying it out loud to me then, I just can't.
And also, like, all of his wins come under weird circumstances.
Because Austria, he was handed it in. There was this one. There was Brazil was his first one. Oh, yeah. Vegas. Yeah.
So all of his wins come in weird ways. And then the one most legitimate win he got disqualified on.
Oh, yeah, because that was Spa.
Yeah.
Lewis got it instead.
Yeah.
So this all happened. The race does its thing. We all wrap up. And
is it time for my British passport rant?
I think it might be, because at this point, Red Bull file a dispute. They file originally 2 disputes. One was the brake checking thing. And then on the back of that, they also filed the more than 10 car lengths. But they later withdrew that, because apparently there's something to do with delta times, and George was braking to make sure he stayed at the right delta time. I didn't really read the details on this one.
See, I think that was the protest worth keeping, even though we know that, because essentially, if you have these 2 conflicting rules, that one says you have to maintain the delta time, one says you have to maintain 10 cars to the safety, or 10 car lengths to the safety car. Also, isn't the delta time between the 2 safety car lines, which would be outside of the pit window?
I don't know. That was the comment that I saw.
You have these 2 conflicting regulations, and at least then you could get an answer to what is the more important regulation, because that could come up at some point in time in the future, and you want that in your back pocket of, whoa, in Canada in 2025, you said that this regulation superseded that regulation if they were, both. Because if it was like, well, we have to maintain distance to the safety car, we have to maintain safety car delta, which one do you follow? At least then we have the precedent of, okay, well, you've said it Canada 2025, you have to follow the safety car delta over, the gap to the safety car. So
we needed to codify the precedence and the priority of the rules, which they failed to do in every possible way.
And I think in that case, they actually might have gotten their protest deposit back.
Yes.
And I also think this is going to be a case of, I think for the most part across all sports, officials don't want to take wins away after they have already been won. If this had been like a lap 10 incident where like they could have been on the blower kind of quickly about it and maybe, give them a 5-second penalty by half race distance or something like that, I think that is much more likely than handing out a different trophy after everything's all said and done, because I don't think officials like to change the outcome of races, no matter what race you are talking.
I concur with this assessment, and I would like to subscribe to your newsletter.
Thank you. Why officiating is a really hard job, and they get it wrong a lot of the time.
Oh, that's actually a really good name for an actual weekly newsletter about the adjudications that go on in F1 races.
It's not only F1 though, because there was a whole thing about like home teams tend, when they are down in association football or soccer, when home teams are down, they get more stoppage time than if they are up.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
That it's not necessarily that that is truly the home team advantage in association football, is the fact that if you are down, the refs tend to give you... First off, stoppage time is always terribly calculated anyway. Like, somebody's run stopwatches to be like, no, this is actually how much time you need to add, and it's always way short. But it's closer to what it should be when the home team is down versus when the home team is up. Then it is a lot shorter. So
what you're really saying is Lance Stroll should have won this race because he should have had the home field advantage.
Yeah.
How much further back would he have been if he hadn't had the home field advantage?
Well, I think, does Lawrence own Medicore now? Or does he just own a bunch of race stuff? He might not. I think he just owns a bunch of... I don't think he owns a racetrack. So. Yeah, but this is definitely a case of, is there a British bias in Formula One? It would be hard to say that there is, but you have a case. But I think the Lando case is a lot crazier in terms of any sort of stewarding bias that we sort of see.
We should clarify for the listeners that Lando, for his crash, got a 5-second penalty.
And no penalty points.
No penalty points. And on top of that, despite the fact that he crashed, causing the safety car, he was still classified, so they added 5 seconds to his finish time.
Because he completed 90% of the race distance. Which we've kind of... So there are like two things here that I think are interesting. The first off is, yes, he completed 90% of the race distance. We add 5 seconds to his race time. I kind of understand it. This seems... like we've talked about before in the F1 rulebook, a lack of imagination around like edge cases.
Yes.
Because there was a whole thing of like people getting penalties and then like they retired from the race and they essentially got no punishment for anything like that. So you end up with, okay, well, if you don't finish the race, then you get a grid drop for the next race. But he did enough of the race to technically be classified. So since he was classified, the 5 seconds was added to his race time. So, and if this was a much more of like a racing incident and seemed like a racing incident of the, like if it had happened when they were side by side on the back straight and they were both going for the corner and it was a racing incident, like I'm not going to be that bothered about it one way or the other. But the fact of Lando drove into a gap that didn't exist into another car. Granted, the other side of this is that there's also a lot of, do you punish the incident or punish the outcome? And because Oscar was able to keep driving just fine, they seem to be punishing more the outcome than the incident. And I'm always more the fan of you punish the incident, not the outcome.
Exactly. Punish the incident.
Right. So you end up in a situation where he caused a crash. He was the only one that could have caused that crash. There was no like, well, Oscar was 10%. Oscar was on the racing line driving. The track curves, but he was driving in a straight line.
Right.
He was driving the racing line. He was driving straight. Lando did not get alongside. So Lando clearly caused the crash. Lando gets no penalty points. The P1 guys, Tommy and Matt, pointed out they can't remember a time when somebody caused a collision, got a penalty for causing a collision, and got no penalty points.
Is this because they thought that he'd paid the price of being taken out of the race?
I can get behind that a little bit for like the 5 second penalty and not a grid drop for the next race, but no penalty points for driving into somebody. I mean, I like Max Verstappen. I think he's a pretty good driver. I think 3 was a little aggressive for understeering into George for a whole crazy situation, but I understand where they're coming from. You're telling me if Max did that, and there's probably also some consideration of their teammates and they're only hurting their own World Driver Championship, but you're telling me that if Max drove into the back of Oscar like that, trying to go around him, he wouldn't get a penalty point?
No, obviously not. It's not possible. He'd get 2 penalty points.
The only reason Max wouldn't get a penalty point in this case was because do they want one of F1's biggest superstars to miss Austria, which is Red Bull's home race, if the situation was reversed? Because who cares if Kevin Magnussen isn't in a race? People are going to care if Max Verstappen isn't in a race.
Yeah, that would be a major problem for them if they managed to lose Max Verstappen. But then they get the excitement of seeing somebody from the Red Bull Junior team pulled up for not going anywhere, and we'd never see them for the rest of the race.
Or pulling Daniel Ricciardo off a tractor.
Oh, yeah, they should do that. That'd be the best one. Would it be fair to say?
But I do think it is absolute. Like, this is what bothers me about Formula One stewarding is, you know, I get it's hard, but you have a clear, and you know, they could have thrown a 10-second at him because that is generally what the penalty has been for causing a collision, which I'm surprised it was only a 5-second when you blatantly cause a collision. But the fact that he didn't even get a penalty point for it, he's only really hurting himself. I think if Oscar goes out of the race, they probably throw the book at him a little bit harder. But you know, that is punishing the outcome, not the incident. And the incident is he unsafely drove into the back of another driver.
Yeah, he literally drove into the back of him. There was nothing else. There was nothing else. There's no extenuating circumstances.
His only penalty is he is now 22 points behind in the driver's standings. And with how the season has started so far, that seems like an insurmountable gap over Oscar. It's one thing if you're in 2 different cars and like, well, we'll see how the development race goes, and one car is going to, but you are in the same car as your teammate. You're going to have the same componentry more or less.
It is noteworthy that Oscar chose to stay with last race's suspension despite being offered the new suspension that they brought for this race.
And he outqualified Lando.
Indeed so, because he's better. Would it be fair to say, as we segue this, that Lando is not your driver of the day?
Lando is not my driver of the day.
Okay. Who is your driver of the day?
My driver of the day is Kimi Antonelli for giving us the one really good on-track overtake, even if it didn't technically count as an on-track overtake because it was the first lap, and causing some general spice in the whole race because it put Oscar a little bit more out of position and ended up giving us the first race of the season that McLaren was not on the podium.
I think that's probably worthy. That's pretty reasonable.
I think he was also the official driver of the day.
I can't remember. I don't know. I think you might be right.
Salesforce driver of the day.
While you sort that out, I will say who my driver of the day was. My driver of the day was Oscar, for one specific reason, because he was so utterly chill after he got rear-ended by Lando. He did not freak out, he did not panic, he was not on the radio, he wasn't screaming about it when they asked him to come in and pit it. He was just so utterly chill, and I love that. Because in that situation, that's what you need to be. That's how you need to make it happen.
Absolutely. He has been coached by Mark Webber about how to be the second driver.
Yep. And it's playing out well for him.
It was Kimi Antonelli was the official Salesforce driver of the day.
Good job, Kimi.
Not that Salesforce needs any more product sponsorship when they could just fix their damn product and make it less shit. Stop spending money on F1 sponsorship and fix your damn product.
They can solve it with AI.
Yeah, fix your damn product.
My driver who couldn't wait for it to be over is Alex Albon's car, because it told him it wanted to be done way early and he just forced it to continue.
Fair enough. Does go against my own personal rule of you must be classified in order to be the driver who wanted their day to be over, because otherwise you did before it.
Fair point.
For my driver who probably couldn't wait for their day to be over was either everybody in the back marker train or Lewis Hamilton for killing an innocent woodland creature on lap 12. And the quote was, "I am devastated because I love animals and I am so sad about it. It's horrible. It's never happened to me before."
I kind of feel like he's justified in being really upset about this as a vegan. It feels terrible for him, and it kind of sucks.
I feel bad for Lewis hitting a groundhog.
Yeah, but you know.
I did see a clip from NASCAR over the weekend of somebody hit a squirrel going into their pit box, and they also felt bad about hitting the squirrel. But then it was, all right, let's rally and win for Mr. Squirrel.
The groundhog should have thought about that before he took out his entire underbody.
Yeah, 20 points of downforce is going to make it really hard.
Yeah. Which team brief would you Which team's debrief do you want to be in?
I already said it earlier. I think my honorable mention is Williams. I think given they struggled, I feel like, as a team this weekend, not necessarily on pace, but purely from like team stuff. So I think that would have been a very interesting debrief to be in. But given that the only people on the grid who weren't under any sort of investigation during the race were the former world champions on the grid, Lewis, Max, and Alonso. They were the only ones who didn't get investigated the whole race.
Wow.
I would go for the stewards room because I would want to know more about the protest. I would want to be like, hey, so is it car lengths or is it Delta time? Because this is crazy that he just let a 17 gap go, or 17 car length gap go, and that's fine. Yeah.
You want to know what blackmail the various team representatives from Mercedes have on the stewards.
I want to know how this one would have played out because also I don't think George is ever going to get a penalty for driving erratically. However, he was kind of driving a little erratically.
Yes, he was. He looked in his mirror right before he hit the brakes.
Yeah. Which do you want to make sure that nobody's behind you? And then sometime also it's the how quickly you get on the radio after that happens of looks in mirror, jams on brake, Verstappen passed me. It's
his final undoing will be that he'll decide to get on the radio to complain before he's hit the brakes.
Yeah, if any driver, I could see George doing that.
It'd be George. So I would like to be in the Merc debrief. Really, just to see how Toto's ignoring of George goes down in the final part of winning the race. But it's going to have to be McLaren because holy shit, I just want to know what you say to Lando. How does that roll out?
Yeah,
so Lando, and then we get to lap 70, whatever it was, lap 67. What happened there?
The only reason I wouldn't say McLaren is because it's not like Spain 2016 where Lewis and Nico are just staring daggers at each other.
They're too friendly, is what you're saying?
Yeah, it's too friendly. Lando, I feel like watching some of the post-race interviews and watching Lando's body language, I really feel like he thinks he lost the World Driver Championship this weekend. Because I think because he went into
weekend.
No, but think about it. He went into this as this is the Lando Norris era from his team, Big Boss.
Mm-hmm.
He had the full support of the team behind him. It was everybody thinking it was going to be Lando. Then Oscar comes out and really gives it to him. Lando does win the first race. He thinks it's on fire. And then Oscar starts really giving it to him the rest of the season. And he starts to close in on Oscar in this race. Granted, Oscar had a little bit of bad luck. He actually passed Oscar on track. Oscar passed him right back, and then he crashes out. This is like if anybody has his name and number right now, it's Oscar.
Did you see the message from his engineer early in the race?
Maybe. I might have been taking a nap.
Okay. Yeah, because it was worthy of taking a nap. This is the one where the engineer comes and says, something, 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 and this is where I need one of your amazing races.
Yeah.
It was amazing, and all the wrong reasons. Shall we take a look at the championship?
I mean, so I saw somebody say it on Threads is like, Lando is 22 points down, and every Lando Norris fan is like, the World Driver Championship is over. Meanwhile, Max is 43 points down, and it's like, all right, we're still on our way to title number 5. We got points back on Oscar this week. We can do it.
The fact is, everybody believes that Max can pull it out the hat and pull that off. Nobody believes Lando can close that gap.
Yeah, I think the thing is that until Max is mathematically out of it, it's like, well, there's still a chance, and we've seen him do some really crazy stuff.
Yes.
Like what if Interlagos is just a slip and slide again?
Who knows? Speaking of Red Bull, they are now 4th in the Constructors. Now, we've heard rumours that, in fact, the rule is, in fact, only when Max is below the 3rd position in the championship that he triggers his exit clauses. But we've also heard that it was when Red Bull were 4th. Below 3rd, sorry.
And I think one of the more interesting things about Lando's DNF this weekend is it pulls like George, Kimi, and Max very close to overtaking Lando to P2 in the standings.
That would be brutal if he gets to the end of the season and he's not second.
Especially given how much they're just like owning the Constructors' Championship right now.
Yes, exactly. Spice takes some rooms.
I think Yuki is putting that Red Bull car right where it deserves to be.
Oh, you used the word deserves to be, but is it where it should be?
Yes, I don't think that car is that good, because if that car was good in any sort of way, Max wouldn't have to kill the tires as much as he would to keep with the front pace. And that is the Red Bull's biggest detriment right now, is how much it chews its tires, which means Max is extracting everything out of that chassis and aero that it has, and it's gutting down to just eating its tires because Max is doing Max things. So I think Yuki is and we've seen Yuki in the whatever Toro Rosso they're calling it these days. What are they calling it these? Oh, Visa Cash App Red Bull Racing.
No, that was last season. This year it's the Racing Bulls.
Oh, okay.
It's just
whatever the hell their car is. Like, Yuki was always driving that car really well. No matter who his teammate was, he was generally beating his teammate. I think he is, in baseball terms, a replacement level driver I think he's a good driver, and he's struggling in the Red Bull. And I think that just proves that Red Bull is, if not, I don't think it's purposely built for Max, but it is built in such a way that Max is the only one who could extract pace out of that car. It'd be interesting to put Max in the McLaren for a weekend and see what kind of pace he could extract out of that car, because he is that good.
I think it'd be interesting to put Max in the Racing Bull and see where it went. There was an interview with Alex who was asked about why does everybody struggle in the Red Bull, and he said part of the challenge is that the Racing Bull is actually a very forgiving car to drive, and so you can paper over many of your own driving flaws. It's very easy to push it in different directions. It's very capable. It may not be fast, but it's a very easy to understand car. And then you get to the Red Bull, and it's not that at all in any way whatsoever.
It might not be fast, but it's been touch or go in the points a lot this season.
Yes, it's definitely a big step up from last year. Shall we talk about predictions for the Formula One MSC Cruises Austrian Grand Prix 2025?
Oh, I didn't make any. When is it? 2 weeks or 1 week?
2 weeks from today. It'll be June 27th. Is the first day.
Does it rain in Austria this time of year?
It can do.
Sure. Well, we're just gonna like similar to last year where we didn't have safety cars for forever. My prediction is just going to be rain until it happens.
Rain until it happens. Okay, I can subscribe to that. Mine are Kimi bins it as he falls from grace. He's touched too high. He needs to fall down from there, because that's what drivers do. Lewis wins because Christ he needs it. And then last but not least, the McLarens are nowhere because their car has been neutered by some sort of regulation drama, something.
Impressive. I'll add to my list of predictions that there will be more turn 3 drama.
Okay. What's turn 3? Remind me which one that one is.
That's one at the top of the hill. That's like the right-hander going down the straight that drops down on that straight. After you go uphill, because turn 1 is your main turn 1, and then turn 2 is like a kink that is technically.
Yep, got it.
Is at the top of the hill.
I remember now. Got it. Yes.
Where you have you take the inside and outbrake and force somebody off the track. There'll be a penalty there for sure.
Perfect. Love it.
Who will get the penalty?
Who will get the penalty?
And more or less, it happens usually in the last 5 laps.
Yes, it will. It probably will. Everybody's tired and they've done too many corners.
Well, it was 2016 where Lewis and Nico hit each other.
Yep, and 2024 where Lewis and Max and Lando hit each other.
Yep, and Max and Charles have, I think, touched there at one point. What a good corner. Do. All right. Well, once again, thank you for listening to Tinfoil Helmets. If you have any feedback, please write into us at feedback@tinfoilhelmets.com. Let us know your conspiracy theories, feedback, and wants. And don't forget to tell your friends to like, rate, listen, subscribe. And because both of us are too chicken to do it, somebody can share this on Reddit.
Yes, please do.